Everyone goes through their particular reading journey differently. For me, I started out by basically doing nothing and having my mom read to me. We very quickly went from A Very Hungry Caterpillar to Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, which is a hell of a transition. For kids series, I was also really into the Magic Tree House and the Boxcar Kids and maybe a few other series that I don't really remember. But for young adult stuff, just besides Harry Potter, I was also into Alex Rider and Artemis Fowl. I still have no idea how you pronounce the author for Artemis Fowl. Is it Eowyn? Is it like from Lord of the Rings, Eowyn? It's not Eoin, right? It can't possibly be Eoin, although I did always call the author Eoin Colfer as a kid. But I didn't really have any real direction in my reading for a long time. All I knew was that I liked the Star Wars Expanded Universe when I was a teenager, and that's probably just because I liked Star Wars in general. The books we read in school were required reading, and thus, apparently, just automatically less enjoyable for me. It didn't help that we were tested on the books and on, specifically, our comprehension of these mysterious things like metaphors and story structure and character development, which to a artsy, non-literary person like myself back in high school was the bane of my existence. But then, in English class in 10th or 11th grade, I forgot, I was assigned this book, Devil in the White City by Eric Larsen. From that day forward, my life changed forever. You may think I'm speaking hyperbole here, but actually, it's kind of true. A lot of people do have that one particular book or that one particular series that is the reason why they read today, or is the reason why they read the kinds of genres that they do today. For me, it's Devil in the White City. Not necessarily even Harry Potter. Star Wars was a bit of an influence, but mostly it's this. But why? In one word, immersion. I absolutely fell in love with this book. Despite the fact that it was a school assignment, I didn't mind reading it. In fact, it was a joy to read. And it did take me a pretty long while to understand why it was a joy. It's because this was the most immersive nonfiction book I'd ever read up to that time. See, this came at a time where reading books for school was barely an interest to me, and the only reading for fun I did was basically Star Wars Expanded Universe books. I even remember being pleasantly surprised while reading this for school, thinking, oh, wait, actually, this is a pretty good nonfiction book. So how did Eric Larsen get it done? Why did this book have such an effect on me? What is so immersive about Devil in the White City? Well, to quickly summarize, Devil in the White City, at its core, is a nonfiction book about the dichotomy of civilization in America in the late 1800s. It focuses primarily on two real-life events that happen at the same time: the Chicago World's Fair in 1893, and the murderous activities of H.H. Holmes, America's first recorded serial killer. And the book delves into the high drama of Daniel Burnham, who was the chief architect of the White City, which was this magnificent mini-city that he was going to build right in the middle of Chicago that was going to be the place that America shows off its technological achievements to the world. It also follows H.H. Holmes as he takes on the persona of being this handsome, charming, personable doctor who builds what really can only be described as a murder hotel right in the middle of Chicago. So that's the history that is covered in the book, and this is another important element of the story. The remarkable thing is I hated history in high school, and all of grade school, actually. Social studies was my least favorite subject. I didn't really, see the point of focusing on the past. Well, what's the big deal with all these dead people? I want to look to the future. I wanted space travel. I wanted medicines that could cure you in an instant. I wanted planes and trains that could take you across the world in 4 hours. I was kind of a techno-optimist kid back then. But history? No, I hated history. You wouldn't catch me reading any history book ever back then. That is, until this book. So remember when I mentioned immersion? Well, Eric Larsen has this very neat way of writing history as if it was fiction. So for example, we follow Burnham as he struggles to manage the various delays and construction mishaps in the White City, and he's also basically shouldering the burden of having to carry all of the expectations of America and the world on his shoulders to make this the greatest World's Fair ever. And we truly feel what Burnham is going through, because Larsen writes Burnham not just like an abstract historical figure, like most historians would write him as, but as a character. Now, don't get me wrong, Larsen obviously did an incredible amount of historical research and analysis to do this book. I mean, the frickin' bibliography in the back is like 70 pages long. Oh my god. But he uses that research to construct this vision, this persona of Burnham that is, at the same time, historically accurate, but also humanizing to the degree that any fictional character from a novel would be. You feel Burnham's pain as the stress takes its toll on his body. You share in the dread and excitement as opening day approaches. And you marvel with him and the rest of the world, basically, as the actual fair kicks off in Chicago. And then on the other side, you descend into the depraved mind and world of H.H. Holmes. He's the psychopathic killer who sees women as targets rather than people. You can sense his excitement and his ambitions as he plans to build this murder hotel right there in the middle of Chicago, and nobody is aware. The book also follows a detective that hunts down Holmes after Holmes basically kidnaps his own wife and kids, and we do share in the detective's disgust and fear as he tracks down Holmes from one Midwestern city to the next, and he's uncovering more atrocities as he continues through his investigation. And we do feel his frustration when he follows leads to dead ends, and it seems like he's not getting anywhere in the case. We also get a sense of his professionalism, that, despite these roadblocks, he keeps on going. He wants to find this guy. So this compelling way that Larsen writes characters, which are real people, they're not characters, they're real. This was something I'd never encountered before, ever. And it was super immersive. It basically placed me in the mind of the person in the book. I was able to understand what they were thinking and feeling at any one moment in the historical narrative. And as a result, I became very invested in the personal journeys of these real people who just were like characters in a fiction story. Right, like I'd done book reports on American presidents and inventors and famous people in grade school before, but that was more of a abstract, oh, this person is kind of cool and they did something significant in history kind of thing. It didn't really stir anything in me. This book presented the historical figure in a whole new light for me. And then, weirdly enough, it was also the detail. This book is so heavily detailed. Larsen is really flexing his historian's muscles when he writes this story. I mean, everything from the architectural challenges of building a city within a city, the politics that entangle themselves in such a large venture as the World's Fair, and then he covers all these background societal changes in America, like these great waves of migration that were sending people from rural areas to urban cities during this time of heavy industrialization. He also touches upon the specific medical techniques that Holmes used in his actual day-to-day job as a doctor, but also in his crimes. This is a history book, through and through. I may be throwing around terms like character and story, but this is straightforward nonfiction. And typically, to high school Larry, this amount of heavily detailed history would have been a nightmare. I would have been like, who cares about any of this? Well, weirdly enough, I did. Because instead of repulsing me and making me think that the book was wasting my time with this unnecessary detail and content, the detail actually enhanced the experience. To this day, one of the best parts of this book was the list of medical ailments that was recorded on the on-site hospital there. Let me read you this. Over the life of the fair, the hospital treated 11,602 patients, 64 a day, for injuries and ailments that suggests that the mundane sufferings of people have not changed very much over the ages. The list includes 820 cases of diarrhea, 154 constipation, 21 hemorrhoids, 434 indigestion, 365 foreign bodies in eyes, ouch, 364 severe headaches, 594 episodes of fainting, syncope, and exhaustion, 1 case of extreme flatulence, and 169 involving teeth that hurt like hell. I mean, how is that just not the most charming list you've ever heard? But outside of the fun facts, the detail was used to enhance the characters in the story. The architectural and engineering problems gave you a better idea of what Burnham was facing during the building phase of the project. Delving into specific medical techniques showed how depraved Holmes really was to his victims. The end result of the character writing and the detail is, once again, that one word, immersion. I am basically dropped into 1893 Chicago, and I'm living it, and I'm there with the characters. I've now read this book 3 times in my life now. I did the initial read in high school, where I was introduced to it. I read it once in college, I remember, and then the last time I read it was in 2019. Every single time, I'm immersed in the universe that Larsen has created. Every time I'm expecting to sort of take it kind of slow and, to 20 pages here, 50 pages there, but no, I ended up staying up till 3 a.m. the last time I read it, reading the last 300 pages because it was just that good. I'm not even interested in 1890s Chicago or serial killer true crime, but Larsen's writing is just so spectacularly engaging and immersive that I have no choice but to care about it. And I genuinely don't think that it's hyperbole to say that this book is the reason why I love reading detailed history books today, which in turn might mean that it's the reason why I love history in general today as a topic. And apparently I love this nonfiction reading stuff so much that I've decided to start a YouTube channel about it. So if you do want some really good nonfiction in your life or in your reading list, I genuinely recommend, without any hesitation, Devil in the White City. It changed my life, and I hope it changes yours. And listen, I understand that your tastes are probably different than mine. If this doesn't work out for you, that's totally okay. I genuinely hope that you find that one book that gets you excited about learning again, that gets you excited about reading again, because reading is fun and reading is great, and getting that feeling, that lifelong love of learning is, I think, super important, and it's also really fun to know things and understand the world in a deeper sense. And I think books can do that, and I hope you find your one book. Thank you for watching, and I'll try and play a little music for the outro here. Come on, baby, don't you wanna go? Howdy, hey, baby, don't you wanna go? Back to that same old place, sweet home, Chicago. Great start to this video here. Checking my hair constantly. Cameras really make you self-conscious. I mean, Jesus Christ. My neck looks weird. Why does my neck look weird?